Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Yevamos Pei. We are 6 lines from the top of the Amud. And we're picking up where we left off yesterday. We had a Shaila. You know, a Kohen who is kosher may not get involved with an Isha, Zoyna, V'chalola. What about the other way around? If she's a female Kohen, a Kohenes, can she go ahead and marry a Chalal? Does the Isra apply to an Isha Kohenes as well? Meaning, if this union is forbidden, he's a Kohen kosher and she's a Chalala, then of course the Isra applies to her as much as it applies to him, as we learned yesterday, because the Isha is committed to all the halachas and isurim in the Torah. She's a partner in crime. She's an accomplice with this Kohen who's marrying her. But if she's the Kohenes Kashera, he's a Chalal. Oh, that's a Shaila. Do these halachas apply to the Isha? Because she's the Isha Kashera, she cannot marry a Chalal, or no? In this case, there's no Is. So we started this yesterday. We're going to start it again today. Here comes the Shaila. Rav Papa, Rav Huna Beider Rishur. Those two, Iklu, they came to visit. They came to this town, Lehinsevu. La'astre, the Rav Idi Bar Abin, this was his town. Bo Minai, the locals asked their esteemed guests, we have a shaila for you. Who's Haruk Sheres? Linase Lepsulin Ulai. Isha Kohenes Keshira. Is she allowed to marry a apostle or not? Does she have the same Isser as the Kohen Kosher marrying a Chalala? Or no? That's limited to the man, but she's a Kshera, she can marry a Chalal. Amar Hu Rav Papa. Rav Papa responds with a Mishnah, which indicates that, no, it's Asr. Just as when he's a Kohen Kosher, he can't get involved with a Chalal law. Likewise, in the reverse situation, if she's a Kohenes Keshera, she may not marry a Chalal. Tani Suah, listen to this Mishnah. In the end of Mesechas Kedushin, we have Asora, Yechson, Olam Bavel. When Klal Yisrael ascended from Bavel with Ezra HaSefer, they were actually grouped into 10 categories, 10 levels of Yichus. You have the Kohanim, over to the Leviim, the Yisraelim. Then we have Chalalim, a fellow born from a Isser Kuhuna union. Gerim, V'charurim, these are Avodim who are non-Jews who were released. Umam, Zerim, Nesinim, the ones we discussed the other day, the Gimva'onim, are allowed to integrate into Klal Yisrael. Shetuki Ba'asufi, 2 forms of identity unknown type of children. They were swept off the street, that's the Asufi. Both father and mother, the identity of both parents are not really known to us. Shetuki, we know who the mother is, but we're unsure as to who the father is. So these are 10 levels of Yichus. Now, can they intermarry? Well, it depends who. Kohanim, Leviim, V'Yisrael, the first 3 categories. Mutar and Lavazeh can marry into each other, no concern there. But then we drop a notch. Leviim, Yisrael, Chalalim, Gerim, V'Charurim, Mutar and Lavazeh. A Kohen can't marry a Chalal, a Ger, etc. But Leviim, Yisrael can. Then we have one more status, which is the Geri, Charuri, Mamzer, Nesini, Shtuki Vasufi. All these, Mutarim, Levez, they can intermarry because the Ger is not called the Ikar, Kahal of Klal Yisrael, and therefore they can get involved with the Mamzer. The Shtuki Vasufi, although they're only a Suffolk Mamzer, but we're following the Shita that a Suffolk Mamzer can marry a Vadi Mamzer. In any case, how does this pertain to us? Because you see, the Mishnah does not say V'ilu Kohanos L'Chalal Lektani. The Mishnah says a Kohen has to stick with either Kohanim, Leviim, Yisrael, and that's it. It can't go to the Chalal. Why doesn't the Mishnah say that Kohanos can marry a Chalal? A Kohen can marry a Chalala, but a Kohenes, a woman Kohen, can marry a Chalal. V'ilu Kohanos L'Chalal Lektani. Why didn't the Mishnah mention that? There is an option between Kohen and Chalal if she's a Kohenes and he's a Chalal. Apparently it's Asr as well. Just as when he is a kohen kosher, he can't marry a halala, the reverse is true as well. So he responded to Rav Papa, it's not a raya. Perhaps the Mishnah is only discussing allowances which work both ways. When this group can marry in that group, and the second group can marry from the first group, it's a two-way allowance. Ketone, that's what the Mishnah discusses. As opposed to the kohen with the chalal, you agree with me, it's only a one-way allowance. Kohen, kivan de'ilu bo'elements of chalala asir, if the kohen kosher decides to marry a chalala, she's asir to him. So just because the kohenes can marry the chalal, that's not reason enough to mention it in the Mishnah, like Tani, therefore we don't mention it. So in any case, he disagrees with Rav Papa. No right from this Mishnah. Perhaps a kohenes is free to marry a chalal. Also, Rav Yehuda bar Abin. So they came to the host, Rav Yehuda bar Abin. Amarlos, he turns to them, Dardaki, youngsters, why bother with this question? It's a well-known halacha. We had this yesterday. A kohenes kshera does not have to keep away from a puzzle. A kohen, as part of his kedushas kahuna, has to be careful with whom he marries. But kohenes, she has no restrictions, and therefore it's pashut that she can marry a chalal as well. Now the Mishnah spoke about shniyos medivrei seifrim. So you have a mother's mother, that's a secondary relative. Shniyos, it's only aser midrabanan. And the Mishnah says, let's say you have Reuven and Shimon, two brothers. Reuven was married to Rachel, who was his shniya. It was a forbidden marriage, midrabanan. Reuven passes away without children. She's now presenting herself as a Yevama to Shimon, the brother, with whom she has no relationship. She was only Reuven's shniya, but not Shimon's. What does the Mishnah say? He can do Yivam as a chiddush, because although the original marriage was not an appropriate marriage, nevertheless, Yivam can be applied even in this case. The question is, what about her kesuva? Bo'minei b'nei Biri, the people from Biri, asked a shayla mir Rav Sheshes. What if it's shnei lebal v'lo shnei liyavan? This Isha Rachel is a secondary erva to the original husband, to Reuven, but then when he passed on and she became a Yevama to Shimon the Yavam, no relationship there, no shniya there. Who pays for the ksuba? You see, typically, the ksuba commitment is related to Reuven's properties. But in this case, as we learned in the Mishnah, the Chachamim revoked that ksuba commitment. They don't want to encourage this type of marriage. Right? So, Reuven, the original husband, has no ksuba commitments to her whatsoever. But now that he passed on, and Shimon is the new husband on the scene, will he have to commit his own money for the ksuba? Yesh lo ksuva miyavam oilo, or maybe not. Explains the Gemara. Kivan damar. You see, we've already learned that ksuvasa al nichsei bala harishon. Even though the yavam is the current husband, but the ksuba payments upon divorce or becoming widowed, the mana, the masayim, the money which he committed in the ksuba, that goes back, that comes from, Reuven's property. Because the svara was that the yavam is merely taking over his marriage. That being the case, in this situation where she was not entitled to ksuba from Reuven, lestal, she doesn't get any ksuba. Shimon is not offering his own commitment. It's just based on Reuven's commitment, and there is none in this case. Or perhaps you can say, since typically, suppose there's not enough property, there's not enough in Reuven's estate to take the ksuba money. What happens then? Chachamim will mesakin that Shimon has to commit his own assets to that ksuba. Rashi says, "Kedei sheloi tehi kala be'enav lo yitzia." We don't want to make it easy for him to just get rid of her. Marriage is based on responsibilities, commitments that injects formality and seriousness into the relationship. So Chacham don't want it to be without a ksuba. There's none from Reuven. Shimon has to step in and play backup role. So in this case as well, Reuven wasn't giving her ksuba because it was an isser and there was a knas. We took away the ksuba, but Shimon should play backup as well, and therefore Isla, she should get ksuba. That was a question posed to who? Rav Sheshes. Amar Rav Sheshes, he responds with a right from a brisa. Tani Suah, listen to this brisa. A typical Yevama. Ksuba sal nechse bal harishin. Her ksuba is taken from Reuben's properties. V'maisa shnil abal. Oh, here's our case. Suppose she was a relative to Reuben. She was a shnia, isam d'rabbanan, in which case she can't get ksuba from him. Afilu miyavim eila, she doesn't get from Reuben nor from Shimon. Clear raya to our shaila. So although typically Shimon plays backup, but in this case, it's not just a question of lack of a shortage of assets. It's a halachic inhibition. There's a reason why she was not entitled to ksuba, because it was an inappropriate, forbidden marriage. In this case, Chacham did not compel Shimon to step forward and offer his own money for the ksuba. Okay, so good, right. Now, let's just analyze the brisa a bit further. If she was a shnia to Reuven, you should know that although perhaps typically she would get from the Yavam, but not in this case. Mechlal de Islam Yavam, do you mean to say she gets a ksuba from the Yavam? We just said that standard procedure is that she gets from Reuven's assets. You have to learn the brisa as though it's missing some words. The brisa was written in brief, concise form. It's as though it's missing some words. And learn it as follows. We begin by saying ksuba sal nechse bal harishin. Standard procedure is Yevama gets her ksuba from Reuven's assets. But, and this is what's missing in the brisa, if Reuven's assets don't suffice for this commitment, Chachamim enacted a takana that Shimon the Yavam steps in and he commits his own assets. But that's when it's conventional and typical, without any halachic issues. But in the case where she was usher to marry Reuven, she was a shnil arayis. In this case, afilu miyavam, don't think that the Yavam will now step in and play backup. No, in this case, there is no such takana. She loses the ksuva altogether. Now, in the Mishnah we learned that this is true when there is an Issa d'Rabbanan. But let's say there was an Issa d'Oraisa involved. She's an Almana, he's a Kohen Gadol. She's a Grusha, he's a Kohen Hedid. In this case, Chacham did not see a need to reinforce the Issa. They didn't see a need to penalize anybody. We allowed the Ksuba and all its inherent commitments to stand. Okay, now, how far does that go? Ba'ominei, Rabbi Lazar, he asked the Shaila mi Rabbi Yehuda. Amar l'koyin gadol, grusha v'chalutz l'koyin hedid, which the Mishnah says will have kesuba. What about mezonos? Typically, a husband commits to support his wife, to feed her. So in these cases, yesh lahen mezonos, do they get mezonos from the husband? Or yein lahen mezonos or not? Hechidami. What exactly is the case? What exactly is the circumstance that you're asking about? We're speaking that she's sitting beneath him, means she's sitting under his care, in his care, meaning they're married, living together. Why would you suggest that he has to feed her? He's meant to let go. He's meant to divorce her. It's an isser. Don't encourage this relationship. There's no question that mezonos isla. Do you even think that she'll get mezonos? Of course, she's not entitled to mezonos. They must separate. Oh, apparently we're speaking. He went out of town. She borrowed. She put it on the credit card. She supported herself. The question is, when the husband returns, does he have to pay her bills? Why yes? Why no? Look, mezayni t'nai ksubanino. Mezayni, feeding one's wife, is t'nai ksuba. It's one of the conditions inside the ksuba. And therefore, midi isla ksuba, since she has full entitlement to the ksuba payment at the end of the termination of their marriage, isla mezayni, she has the right to be supported as well. Or perhaps you can say, there's a big difference between the two things. Ksuba, of course she gets. The lemishkal meipak, that's something which she takes on the way out of the marriage. Isla, of course she gets that. We have no reason to hold that back. It's the opposite. We try to encourage their separation. But Mizoini, when it comes to supporting her, perhaps that would encourage her to stick around, and we don't want that to happen unless perhaps she's not entitled, and that was the question they asked Rabbi Yehuda. She asked Ksuba, but what about Mizoinis? Amaleis, Rabbi Yehuda responds to Rabbi Lezer, Leslo, she's not entitled to Mizoinis. Vatanya, well, we have a brisa which is actually coming up soon, which says Yeshla. When it entails the Issa Daraisa, she holds on to the Ksuba and to the Mizoinis. Oh, Kitanya, that's speaking Lachar Misa after his passing. Rashi brings that part of the Ksuba commitment is that after one passes away, his widow can stick around in his home and continue being supported as long as she's still an almana. In that case, we have no concern about this continuous relationship that he's no longer on the scene, and therefore in this case she can get the mezonis. There was another version of this response. Rabbi Lezer asked Rabbi Yechanan, the almana l'kohen gadol, does she get mezonis? Amrlei, and he responded, Tani, what do you mean? We have a brisa, yeshla, she gets the mezonis. So Rabbi Lezer responds to him, he asks, how can you allow her mezonis? Aren't you encouraging this relationship? He's meant to divorce her. So I disagree with you. And then the Gemara asks, or Rabbi Lezer or Rabbi Yechanan responded, Ve'ela v'hatani yeshla, what do you mean? We have a brisa that she can get the mezonis. No, kitanya hilachar misa. That's speaking after death, after his passing. In that case, there's no reason to deprive her of mezonis. He's anyways no longer on the scene. So bottom line is, when there's an issa d'oraisa involved in this relationship, does she get ksuba? Yes. What about mezonis? Well, it depends. We have three possibilities. After misa, yeah. If she's sitting with him right here, no. We don't want to encourage this relationship. If he left town and she borrowed on his account, does he have to repay that? To that, Rabbi Yehuda says the answer is no. Continues the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a brisa, Almana, who was married l'kohen gadol. So it's a forbidden marriage. Grusha v'chalutza, married l'kohen hedyot. These are isuri deraisa. Still, we don't revoke the ksuba commitments. We keep it intact. Yesh lo ksuba. When they separate, she can claim the ksuba money. Peiros. Suppose this husband took the fruit off her fields while married. Since it isn't really a proper marriage, she can reclaim those peiros. He has to repay that. Mezoinos. He has to pay her bills. As we just explained, we're speaking in very specific cases. For instance, lachar misa. Bilois. Suppose the clothing that she brought into the marriage got worn out, he was wearing them, he's using them, she can get them back. V'hi, but she's affected. She becomes a chalala, unfit to marry a kohen going forward. Uvla, the puzzle, her child as well, becomes puzzle because of this interaction with the kohen gadol. V'kayfanoisi, you force the husband to get rid of her, to give a get. That's because it's minat Torah. But if it's only Issa Midirabbanan, such as Shniyos Midivrei Seifrim, in that case, we go a step further. We actually are machmer. Ein la ksuba, we take away the ksuba commitment. We cancel the ksuba. We penalize them. Loi peiros, she cannot reclaim the peiros that he ate. Loi mezainas, he doesn't have to pay her bills. Loi belois, she can't even reclaim the worn out items that were worn out while they were married. V'ik shera, but she's still kosher, unaffected by this union. Uvlada kasher, and so is her child. Of course, we force him to divorce. So in the first list, we have Isurei Doiraisa, but the ksuva remains intact. In the second part of the brisa, we have Isurei D'Rabbanan, where the ksuva becomes cancelled. And why? Why? Amar Reb Shimon ben Elazar, I'll tell you why. Why by the Almana l'kohen gadol, which is this the Raisa, we keep the ksuba in place? Why is it different than the Shniyas Midivrei Seifrim, where it's only Midirabbanan and we take away the ksuba? The answer is shehu pasal, v'hi pesula. When it's an Almana l'kohen gadol, they're both adversely affected. They both have much to lose from this marriage. He's pasul, Rashi says. He can't serve in the Beis HaMikdash as long as he's married to her. She is pasul, she becomes a chalala. And when they're both affected by this marriage, we don't penalize her. He just has to pay the ksuba. And Rashi says, look, this marriage isn't going anywhere. There's going to be tension and regrets because they're both affected by this marriage. It's going to unravel and fall apart, and therefore we don't have to exert much effort in that direction. Just leave it as is. That's because it's d'oraisa. That's because they become pasul. But in the seifa, in the next case, where it's only d'rabbanan, you don't have that factor. Why is it that when it's only d'rabbanan, we take away the ksuva, because he and her are unaffected by that union. And when they're both not affected, they don't have much to lose from this union. You're concerned that they might just carry on, and therefore we penalize. We take away her ksuva, and Rashi says, by taking away her ksuva, we're discouraging this marriage, because typically the isha, Rashi says, isha roitzoli nasa yosem ish, it's more of the woman's nature to want to get married more than the man. She's more motivated to keep this marriage going, and therefore we revoke the ksuba, which will perhaps discourage the continuation of this marriage. She'll say, look, he's not committed to me, there's no ksuba, and hopefully, slowly but surely, this marriage will unravel. So who's speaking? This is Reb Shimon ben Elazar. When it involves this d'oraisa, we're not concerned. It's not going anywhere. It's going to fall apart. But when it's only Issa d'Rabbanan, and they're not really affected by this marriage, they don't become pasul. In this case, we have to do something to try to terminate this relationship. We take away the ksuba. Rabbi Eimer, I'll give you a different reason. Halol divrei Torah. The first category in the Brisa is Isurei Torah. V'divrei Torah ein tzrichen chizuk. Isurim and Torah stand on their own. They don't need our reinforcement. People take them seriously enough, and therefore we don't have to do much to discourage this type of relationship. We leave everything intact. V'halol divrei seifrim. But when it comes to shniyos, that's only midrabanan. V'divrei seifrim tzrichen chizuk. Dina d'Rabbanan, perhaps people can take lightly. People can disregard. We have to reinforce it. And therefore we're more inclined to penalize, and we revoke the ksuba. And why is it that we penalize the woman more than the man? So again, based on Rashi, Isha roitzoli nasa yosem ish, a woman is more motivated to marry than the man. Therefore, we go in her direction, we take away the ksuba, hoping that this will discourage this continued relationship. Davar acher. Here comes another reason for this distinction. Zehu margila. V'zu hi margila soy. In the Reisha, where it's Issa d'oraisa, where she becomes pasul, her children become pasul, she has a lot to lose from this marriage. So she's not really instigating it. She's not really motivated to make it happen. He is the one doing it. Zehu margila, and therefore we don't penalize her. But in this seifa, it's only Issa d'Rabbanan, in which case she's not going to be affected. She's not going to become pasul. V'zu hi margila, she's the one instigating it. She's the one that's motivated to make it happen, and therefore we penalize her. We take away the ksuba. Now, davar acher man ketanila. We had two Tanoim, Reb Shimon ben Elazar. We had Rebbe. Now we have davar acher, another reason for this difference between Reisha and Seif. Who's speaking? Is it Reb Shimon ben Elazar adding another dimension, or is it Rebbe adding another dimension? Ikadamri, some say Reb Shimon ben Elazar ketanila. He's the one saying it. Umatam kama, he's just trying to elaborate on what he said. The question was, why in the Reisha we allow the ksuba to stay intact, and why in the Sefer we take away the ksuba? Shimon Elazar tells us, because in the Reisha, he's pasul, she's pasul, and therefore we keep the ksuba intact, but in the Sefer, they're kosher, we want to do something to shake up this relationship, we take away the ksuba. Uma'atam kamar. Why is it so? Ma'atam amru. Why is it that they said, when hu pasal v'ipsul, when they're both affected by the marriage, konsois a ksuba, we leave the ksuba intact, and he has to pay his ksuba commitments? V'pnei shu margila. For this very reason, because he's the one instigating it, meaning, since she's becoming pasal, she has a lot to lose. Permanently, she becomes psula l'kahuna. So she's not really motivated to make this happen. She's not instigating it. If anything, it's coming from him, and therefore we don't penalize her. Then why in the next category, the next part of the brayso, where it's only Issa D'Rabbanan and both are kosher, both are not affected by this relationship, konsois a ksuba, we take away the ksuba. Why do we penalize her? For this very reason, shehi magilasa, because she's the one instigating it. She's unaffected, and she'd like to get married more than a man does, and therefore we penalize her, we take away the ksuba to perhaps shake up the marriage and bring about to its termination. That's one approach. It's Reb Shimon Elazar speaking, elaborating on his reason. Ikadamar, others say, it's Rebbe Ktanel, he's the one who added this component. Why was it necessary? What's wrong with what Rebbe told us? Well, Divrei Torah don't need chizuk. Divrei Seifrim need chizuk. Why don't we suffice with that? Oh, he had a kasha. Because remember, in the ratio we discussed several cases, 3 in all. Almana l'kayin gadol, grusha l'kayin hedid, and chalutza. Now, almana to kayin gadol, grusha to kayin hedid, is a deraisa. Divrei Torah ain't tzrich and chizuk. That works. But chalutza l'kayin hedid, that's only midrabanan. Rashi brings, although we have a pasuk, but it's only an asmachta midrabanan. If it's midrabanan, we should apply the kanas. Why do we allow the ksuba to stand? He had a kasha, Rebbe. So Rebbe's coming and trying to address that kasha. He had a kasha about chalutza. Chalutza the rabbanon. Chalutza to kohen hedid is merely issa the rabbanon ve'isla k'suva. We let the suva stand. Doesn't really fit with the formula presented by Rebbe. Hadarama. That's where Rebbe comes back and says, look, there's another aspect to this formula. Kivan de pasila midrabanon. The fact is, even by a chalutza, she becomes pasal, at least midrabanon. The Bach says pasala mitruma midrabanon. She can't have truma. In any case, something happens to this isha. If that's the case, she has a lot to lose, and she's naturally inclined to refuse this type of relationship. Zehu margila, if anything, he's the one instigating it, and therefore we don't penalize her. Vizu, he margilas, as opposed to the other cases with the shnia la'arayis, where she's unaffected, completely unaffected. In this case, we say, well, the isha is more inclined to want to get married. She's roitzel inase more than the ish, and therefore we choose to focus on her. We take away the ksuba, which will perhaps discourage this type of relationship. So, bottom line is, we have a brayso with 2 parts. In the first part, we discussed isurei d'oraisa, primarily isur d'oraisa, and in that case, we say the ksuba stands, whereas in the seifa, when we speak about shniya medivrei seifrim, we say the ksuba gets cancelled. Why? What's the difference? Says Reb Shimon Elazar, well, in the first group of cases, they become affected. It makes them possible. And if so, we don't have to step in. They have enough reason to separate. Whereas in the seifa, where they're unaffected by this relationship, we have to step in and try to do something. We take away the ksuba. We have Rebbe who says, very simple. This is the Iraisa, this is the Rabbanon. The Iraisa doesn't need chizuk. We leave it alone. And the Rabbanon doesn't need chizuk, and we apply the knas. And according to the simple wording of Rebbe, it would seem that chalutza, which is only midrabanan, would belong in the second category, where a knas would apply. But the Brisa added another point, which is margila. So who's the one that's motivated? Who's the one that's driving, the driving force behind this marriage? And according to one pshat in the Gemara, Rebbe was the one who added this dimension to his formula in order to address the chalutza situation. Chalutza is only midrabanan, and we allow it to stand. We allow the ksuba to stand. The reason is because in that case, she's affected by this relationship, and therefore she's totally unmotivated in this marriage, and therefore we don't have to penalize her. And according to the other pshat in the Gemara, this svara of Margila was not Rebbe speaking; it was Shimon Elazar, and he was trying to explain his words. Why is it that the ratio, when they're puzzle, we don't concern ourselves with the ksuba, we let it stand? The reason is because in the case where they become puzzle, then she's totally unmotivated. She's discouraged as is from pursuing this marriage, and therefore we don't have to penalize her. Whereas in the case of the Shnei L'arayis, where she remains unaffected, untainted, she is the motivating force, and therefore we take away the ksuba to try to encourage the termination of this marriage. Now, my ika bein Rebbe l'Reb Shimon ben Elazar. So we have the formula presented by Rebbe, at least according to the first version of the Gemara. Rebbe works with Dairaisa the Rabbanon, and he says by Dairaisa we don't have to apply a knas. We leave the ksuba standing, whereas by the Rabbanon we have to reinforce it, and we penalize the parties involved. Whereas Reb Shimon Elazar is the one who says, look, it depends what's happening. It depends on who's affected by this relationship. If there's a psul going on, if somebody's affected, then we have no reason to take away the ksuba, because in any case they have ample motivation to end this relationship. Whereas if they remain unaffected by the rabbanos, let's say by the shniyos, we have to do something to interfere with their marriage. So is there any halachic difference between the two formulas? My ika bein Rebbe l'Reb Shimon ben Elazar. What's the difference between this approach or that approach? The Gemara will present no less than 5 nafkaminas. And basically we're looking for a case where there's an issa d'oraisa involved, but the woman remains unaffected by this relationship. Okay, if we can come up with something like that, we will have a nafkamina, a halachic difference between this formula and that formula. Because if it depends on whether it's d'oraisa, a issa d'oraisa does not result in knas and penalization of the ksuba, then the ksuba will stand. But if the point is that when she is affected by the relationship, we don't have to interfere because she has no reason to pursue it. But if she's unaffected by the relationship, then she's the motivating factor and she's the driving force, and we have to penalize her. So in this case, even if it's the Iraisa, but if she's unaffected, we have to penalize her. So let's find a case which contains both elements, both components. It's, number one, Issa Daraisa, but on the other hand, she remains untainted, unaffected. That will be the nafkamina between both formulas, between whether it depends on Issa Daraisa or whether it depends on being affected. Okay? I'll give an example. Mamzeres on a sinal Yisrael. She's a mamzeres, marriage Yisrael. That will be the nafkamina. That will be the difference. Because mandam da'iraisa, if it depends on whether it's Issa Da'atayra, here it's Hanami Da'iraisa, of course it's a Da'iraisa. So we don't have to tinker with the ksuba, just let it stand. Da'iraisa doesn't need chizuk, doesn't need our help. Manda Amar, according to the other approach, which is Mipnei Shehu Margila. Depends who the motivator is, depends who the instigator is. So if she's unaffected, if she doesn't become puzzle, she's not, then she has the interest in keeping this marriage going, right? And the only reason why we'll keep the ksuba is because he is the one motivating. Who margila? Basically, what the Gemara means like this: if she gets affected by it, so she has no interest in it, he is the one who margila is the one instigating it. Then we keep the ksuba standing. But in this case, in the case when she's a mamzeres marriage Yisrael, she's unaffected. He margila, she's instigating it. She's the motivating. She's the driving force. She's already mamzeres. Nothing's going to happen to her when she marries a Yisrael. She can't get worse than a mamzeres. So in this case, if it depends on the motivating factor. She's motivated to make this happen, so therefore we have to penalize her. In fact, Rashi adds, actually, she has good reason to marry the Yisrael because somehow, the kids of a mamzer can become cleansed. Rashi brings a Gemara that we actually had a while ago. We alluded to this, that a mamzer can become tahor. We have a mamzer marrying a shivcha. They have a son who's an eved, and that eved is set free. He becomes a regular Yisrael. So if that halacha is adopted as fact, it's actually machlekes. But if we follow that shita, if anything, she has more reason, all the more reason to marry the Yisrael, so that hopefully her descendant will become a Yisrael Gomer. So really, there are two factors working against her. Number one, simply speaking, she has nothing to lose. She's not going to get worse. She's not going to get worse than a mamzer, right? She's already a mamzer. Right? So if there's nothing happening to her through this marriage, she's motivated to marry. And the Isha wants to get married. Number two, if anything, she can try to benefit her descendants by marrying the Yisrael. So here, we would take away the ksuba to try to discourage this type of move. Okay, so we have a case where it would depend on which formula you apply. It's talking about a mamzeres marrying Yisrael. It's a deraisa. So if that's what it depends on, is it the right that we leave the ksuba? Well, we'll leave it as well. If it depends on whether or not she's affected, meaning when she's not affected by this relationship, we penalize her. We try to discourage it. In this case, we'll have to discourage it. Says the Gemara, that only works according to that shita that I mentioned, Rabbi Tarfon, right, that the child of the Isha of a mamzer can somehow, come around. But the Rabbi Lezer, according to the other shita, the Amar is eved mamzer. If a mamzer married a shivcha and they had a child, that child is an eved a mamzer. It's not like when you become an eved, you get freed of all your, yichus deficiencies. No, it's the mamzer title sticks. So in that case, she's not going to encourage this fellow. She's not going to be motivated to marry the Yisrael. You know why? First of all, she has nothing to gain, and she has a lot to lose. Taisers say, look, this fellow, this Yisrael, is totally uninterested in her. Look what you're doing to my kids. You're the mamzeres. I have no hope for my kids, my children, my grandchildren. Ad seif kol adoros will have no tikkun. So she's very weary of marrying this fellow who is going to have just hard feelings towards her because she's bringing about psul into his family. There's absolutely no reason for her to marry him. She's totally unmotivated to go ahead with this marriage, and therefore there's no reason to penalize her, no reason to take away the ksub. So basically, the nafkamina fell off. We thought that in this case she's motivated. She's not motivated, and therefore there's no reason to apply the knas. Elam Rav Yosef. I'll give another case, which would be an afkina. Machzor grushasa mishanisas ikebenayu. If one remarries his wife after she had already married somebody else, that's an isser min HaTorah. It's a lav. If he does that, he remarries the grush. Is there a ksuba? Well, it depends. Mandamar dairaisa. If it depends on whether it's dairaisa, hanami dairaisa. This is true. Is it a dairaisa? You'll keep the ksuba intact. Mandamar, according to the other pshat, pnei margila, that we only keep the ksuba in place when she's affected by the marriage and unmotivated in this marriage, and he's the one instigating, and therefore we don't penalize her. Well, in our case, a machzor grushasai, she's the one trying to get married to him because she's unaffected by this relationship. A machzor grusha doesn't become pasal kahuna. We had this a while ago because it's not called. It says kiyeli ish zar. It's not really a stranger. It was her husband. So in any case, she doesn't become a halala. She remains kasha lakuna. She's unaffected, and therefore she has good reason to marry him. And therefore, we should penalize her. We should remove the ksuba to discourage this. Or the Rabbi Kiva, but according to Rabbi Kiva, it doesn't work. Why? The Amar yesh mamze mechayev elavin. Even when it's just an isra lav, a child generated from this relationship is a mamzer. Which basically means that the child's affected and the isha as well becomes pasal kahuna. Halay margale. In this case, she's not going to be encouraged to marry. She's not going to be motivated to marry him. So why would you have to penalize her? Lay margale v'lay midi. Not at all. So that's not an afkamina. Elamar of Papa. I'll give you an afkamina. Bu'ulu l'kain gadli kibanayim. He's a kain gadli. She's a bulla. She already experienced marriage. She already is a non-basula. Kain gadli has to marry a basula. Doing this is an isur asay. So now, is he committed to ksuba? It depends. Mandama deiraisa. If it depends on deiraisa, hanami deiraisa. Here too, it's instant deiraisa. There's no ksuba. There is ksuba. Sorry, it's ksuba because it's deiraisa. We don't have to reinforce deiraisa. Umandama, according to the other approach, vepeshu margila. It depends on whether she's affected. Hahi margila. Here she's unaffected. It's only an isra asay. She doesn't become puzzle through this interaction. So she'll look to marry him, and therefore we have to remove the ksuba. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? According to him, the Amar yesh chalal mechav. Even if it's an isra asay, a chalal is generated. Haloi margila v'loi midi. In this case as well, she's not going to be encouraged to marry. She's not going to want to approach this fellow because she'll be affected with her children. Elam Ravashi, I'll give you an afkimina. Machzer suffix etas ikibinai. Suffix etas is a reference to an isha who went through kini v'stira. He wanted her to keep away from this fellow. She proceeded. There was kini, there was stira, and she has to go drink the meisait in the Beis Hamikdash. Up until that point, even her husband may not interact with her. So let's say he ignores the halacha, he doesn't take it to the mikdash. He just continues living with her as though nothing happened. Is there a kesuba? Ma'andama dairaisa, anami dairaisa. If it depends on dairaisa, here it's a dairaisa, we keep the kesuba. Or ma'andama meishu margila. But according to the other shaila, the other formula, it depends on who's the motivator. In this case, he margila, she's the motivator because she's unaffected by this relationship. And therefore we revoke the kesuba. Asks the Gemara, but according to that shita, the Amar, even if husband and wife are on the way to the Mikdash, interacts with her as married. Also, she becomes a zoina, she becomes affected. She has a lot to lose from staying married to him. She's not going to encourage this relationship. Not at all. There's no reason to penalize her. I'll give you an example of an afkamina. Soita vade ikibenai. Rashi says soita vade means ish who strayed. She committed znus. Menat she can't stay married with her husband, and she stays married with him. Here we have an issa d'oraisa, but she's not going to be affected by it because she's already a zoina from that experience. This continued relationship with her husband is not going to change her status, not going to exacerbate her situation. In fact, Rashi has a kashi, says, what do you mean? According to Rekiva, any love situation makes the child a mamzer, so fine, she's not exasperated, but the children are. He says, no, all agree about this type of saita situation, even though she can't stay on with her husband, but interacting as married, that's not going to create a mamzer. There's a gemara and a chilet, stuff mem test, we spoke about it. There's no mamzer in this situation, according to all shittas. So in any case, in this case, she has nothing to lose. She's already aser. She's already a zoina. Children are not going to be affected, as Rashi explained. They're not going to become a mamzer. See here, look. It's an issa deraisa, but she's unaffected. So if it depends on deraisa, we'll leave the ksuba intact. But according to the other pshat, here she's unaffected. She's nothing to lose. She's motivated to stick around with him, and therefore we have to discourage it by taking away the ksuba. Okay, let's do a brief chazara on today's daf. We learned that a kayehenes keshera may marry a chalal. We learned that the ksuba given to a yevama comes from her former husband's property. If there isn't enough, the yavam serves as backup. But if she was usher as a shnil arayis to Reuven, and then she went on to marry Shimon, who's fine because he's not a shnia. What about her ksuba? No ksuba because she was undeserving of ksuba due to her marriage, her forbidden marriage with Reuven. Suppose this marriage is asam and Torah. Mishnah tells us the ksuba remains unaffected. What about mizoines? Does he pay her bills? Well, it depends. If they're still living together, of course not. We don't want to encourage this continuous relationship. Lachar Misa, he passed on. In that case, she gets mezainis. There's no issue with him, he's not around. What if they're still married, but he left town and she borrowed on his account? Does he have to repay when he comes back? Rabbi Yehuda says the answer is no. We had a brisa listing some cases where it's an issa deraisa, where we say the ksuba remains intact. We have some cases where the ksuba is revoked. What's the difference? Rav Shimon Elazar says, well, when there is psul involved, there's no reason for us to get involved. In any case, this thing is unraveling. According to another pshat in the Gemara, he actually added to it. He said, look, if she's being affected by it, then she has all the reason to stay away from him, and therefore we don't have to penalize her. Whereas if she's not affected, then Rashi says, by nature, a woman wants to marry even more than the husband, and therefore we penalize her, we take away the ksuba. Rebbe says, look, it depends whether it's doiraisa. The raisa doesn't need chizuk, we just leave it alone. Whereas if it's the rabbanon, they would say from tzrich and chizuk, and we have to apply a knas to discourage this type of marriage. According to one pshat in the Gemara, Rebbe was actually adding another dimension as well to account for chalutza, which is only an issa d'rabbanan. Why over there do we leave the ksuba intact? Because over there she has a lot to lose. She becomes pasul, and therefore there's no reason for us to get involved. In any case, she'll try to keep away from him. Now, is there enough kamina whether we follow the doiraisa, the rabbanan formula, or whether we follow the other formula of her being affected or not? So we came up with a total of 5 nafkaminas. Mamzeres to Yisrael, Machzak Rishasa, etc., etc. The common denominator amongst all of them was that, although it was an Issa Deraisa, but she was not going to really have much to lose from this relationship, and therefore, if it's totally in Deraisa, if that's what keeps the Ksuba intact, we'll keep it here as well. But if the only reason why we keep the Ksuba in place is because she becomes affected by this relationship, and therefore she is discouraged to begin with, but in a case where she's not affected, and she's the motivating factor behind this marriage, she's margila, she's the instigator, in this case we have no choice but to revoke the ksuba commitments. Kol tov to you and much hatzlacha.